Good morning. This is going to be part 2 of conserving the Enfield No. 1 Mark III rifle. Today we're going to start on the wood here. So I've got all the wood off of the rifle. I've got the metal removed as much as possible. There's some things like these metal clips that you're really better off to leave in place as you clean and do the wood. You got to be real careful on these. These are fragile. Also on the upper handguard, there's a little metal ferrule right here. It's got little nails and brads in it, and we're just going to leave that there and clean it in place. On the buttstock, you've got the disc for the unit, and on this particular rifle, I'm going to leave that in place because the wood has grown over the edges of it over time, and if I pull it out, it's going to crack the wood, and we can clean this with that in place, no problem. So we're going to leave that there. So the first thing I do is just take a nice brush and basically just try to get all of the crud out of the nooks and crannies to start with. The big stuff. That'll help save you some time later, because once you start scrubbing on this thing, that big stuff will just keep making a mess. Come in here, scrub. You're going to find a lot of crud in here. You just kind of want to scrub that out of there as much as you can. The biggest thing you want to do is try not to scratch up the wood any more than it is already. Now, because this is a military rifle, our goal here is not to make a beautiful, shining, brand new looking stock. Because what that will do is tank the value of the rifle. What we want to do is basically the maintenance that wasn't done over the years. So we'll just scrub this up. Now you'll see all this blue. That's because this has a brass butt plate, and that is just crud from the brass aging. So once you've got the big stuff knocked down, then you can take a solvent. I like to use denatured alcohol or acetone because they flash off quick. The big thing is you don't want to soak this wood. You want something that you can use to scrub and clean, but not soak the wood. And right now, I can't find my paper towels. So let me find the paper towels and we'll be right back. Okay, once you've got all the big crud off, we're going to take some denatured alcohol and a rag or a paper towel. And what we're doing here is we're just going to scrub the outside. You don't really want to get the rifle soaking wet. So what you do is just kind of scrub that in there, and you can see all the filth coming off of this already. But you want to basically, you don't want to soak this wood. But you want to clean as much of that big crud off as you can. So I'm going to clean all this up, and then I'll get back with you for the next step. Okay, we've got all of the initial scrubbing and the major nasty crud off of these. Now, everybody's got a different way of doing this. They're all a little different, but they're all mostly the same. So the next step I like to do before I start worrying about trying to get the cosmoline out so much, is I'm going to take one of these coffee can lids that I use to mix stuff up, and I'm going to take just a little bit of boiled linseed oil, and a splash of mineral spirits. Probably a 1 part linseed oil to 3 parts mineral spirits, plus or minus. It doesn't really matter. I mean, and I'm going to get some 4/0 steel wool, and I'm going to stir this up a little bit. Now, what we don't want to do is sand this stock. And what we're doing with this steel wool is it's going to scrub this wood, but it's not going to necessarily sand it. And the thing is, you don't want to press down hard. You're basically just you want to get the excess off of it, and you just want to scrub. You don't press down. You just scrub it, go on the inside, scrub these edges. And what this will do is remove some of this heavier gunk. Whoops, gotta hold on to it. You just want to scrub, and like I said, we're not pushing down on it. We're being nice and soft as far as our touch. We're not trying to sand the gun. We don't want to destroy. We don't want to make it look like a brand new gun. That's not the goal here. Anyways, you scrub it a little bit, and then before you let it soak in, you just wipe everything down real quick. And so you're getting more gunk off of this. That's all we're trying to do, is clean the wood. We're not trying to sand it. We're not trying to make it look brand new. You're just going to clean it up. So we'll set that piece aside. You don't want to leave these sitting wet with the mineral spirits and stuff on them. You always want to try to keep them dried best you can. But all this is doing is cleaning more trash off of this wood. You've got years and years and years of neglect, and all we're trying to do is just remove the dirt and nastiness and leave the wood. And one other benefit that the steel wool gives you as you use it is, though you're not sanding it, so to speak, it does smooth the wood somewhat. I personally, when I do these military rifles, I do not try to remove all the dents and dings from them, because that's what military rifles get when they're used, is dented and dinged, and no sense in trying to remove part of its history. But what it does do is it will smooth those down, so that while it may have dents and dings, it will feel good in the hand. Nice and smooth. So we continue. So I'm going to clean these last two parts, this up with the scrub, and then I'll come back and show you my next step. Okay, we've completed initial cleaning, and now we've got to go to the step that everybody hates the most, which is removing the cosmoline, grease, preservative, and years of all sorts of lubricants from this wood so that we can give it a new coat of linseed oil, boiled linseed oil. So you'll see on the internet all sorts of ways to remove cosmoline. And there's the way I do it, and there's right or wrong. There's several other ways. What I would suggest you not do is I would not put oven cleaner on your wood stock. I would not put your wood stock in your dishwasher. Both of those are a good way to ruin the wood, and cause you to have to basically refinish the whole rifle and destroy the value of it. So heat is what gets cosmoline out of wood. A lot of people, they like to wrap the wood in paper towels, put it in a black garbage bag, and put it out in the sun. That works great. For me, it's not always sunny. So I built, years ago, when I first started doing this, I built this contraption here with see all the wires and everything, and there's a dimmer switch there, and it plugs in, and basically it is a stock oven, and there's 400-watt light bulbs in there. And you know, as you know from wintertime, when you put a 100-watt light bulb in your pump house to keep your well from freezing, they put off heat. Right now it's about 150 degrees inside this box from those 4 light bulbs. So what I do is the only bad thing about my way is it's not necessarily fast, because I can only put one piece of stock in there at a time. But I take paper towels and I wrap the stock in some paper towels, and the purpose of the paper towels is as the wood is heated and the oil starts weeping out of the wood, the paper towels will wick away some of that oil and prevent it from being sucked back into the wood once it starts to cool down. And this is a process. It takes time. So we'll lay this in here. I got a couple little hangers there to keep it kind of elevated. We'll lay that in there and we close it, and then we'll come back after a while and check on it. As the paper towels get soaked with oil and cosmoline, you put new ones on it. And you basically just keep doing it until you get all the oil. Now, there will be some pieces of wood that you just can't get all the oil out of. You'll heat them and heat them and heat them, and they'll still keep weeping. But after a certain point, it gets down to where it's not so much, and you can move on. So I'll bring you back when I open this again in a few hours, and let you see what's going on. Okay, it's been a couple of hours since we put this first piece in here, so we'll pull it out and check it, see how it's doing. Now, some of these parts may not have any oil soaked into them. It just depends on how they stored the guns. And see here, the only place I can see any oil is here. This is going to be probably gun oil that they've used to lubricate the rifle over the years, that is soaked into the wood. So what we're going to do is wipe that off. We're going to look at the outside. Now see, we've got a lot of oil right here that's coming out of that wood. So we want to wipe that all up. And you want to do it rather quickly. You don't want it to soak back into the wood as the wood cools off. And the other thing you'll be doing as you get all this oil off here is getting more grunge off too. So since that's really the only spot we've got a lot of oil peeking through, so we'll go ahead and wrap that end again. And we'll stick it back in for another go. This is where you want to take your time, because there's nothing worse than getting out on the range on a hot summer day, grabbing up your rifle and getting a handful of cosmoline that's weeping out of it because it's sitting out in the hot sun. So we'll be back in another couple hours to check again. Okay, so this part, we finally cooked the cosmoline out, and you'll notice that this wood in here was very, very dark when we started, and now it has lightened up considerably as all the oil has come out. And you can see how much cleaner this is than when we started. So now that piece is ready for the next step, and we've got to finish these other pieces. These two haven't been cooked yet, and this other one is in here. Let's check on it, let's see what it looks like. So we don't have, doesn't look like it's got a lot of cosmoline soaking, so I think we'll be okay with that one. I'd say that's ready. It's just a little spot right there. But that wood is definitely not cosmoline soaked. So we'll set it aside and wrap the next piece up and get it ready. So I take this and wrap it around these end pieces here, because that's where usually the most amount of oil comes out of it. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. We'll wrap this other up at the same time. And we'll heat them in the old oven here and get all the cosmoline out of them. And then we'll be back for the next step. Now that we've gotten all of the cosmoline and old gun oil out of the wood, what we need to do now is start to finish it. So with military rifles, you want to keep it looking original. You don't want to make it all shiny and looking brand new, because you're going to ruin the value of the rifle. Basically what we're going to do is give this some boiled linseed oil, which was the original finish on these. And in service, they would have from time to time been given a new coat of boiled linseed oil, so you're not changing the historical elements of the rifle. So we're going to take a little boiled linseed oil, and it doesn't take a lot, just a little bit. And what I like to do for the first 1 or 2 coats is use some 4/0 steel wool as my applicator, And we're not going to push down on this. We're not trying to sand this stock. All we're doing is using that as an applicator, and as we're rubbing it in, it will smooth the surface just a little bit. Not sanding, just smoothing it so it feels good in the hand. And you want to put a nice coat all over. Once you've got everything coated, you're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and give it a wipe down. So I'll be right back. Alright, after you've let the oil sit on the surface and soak in for about 5 minutes, then what you want to do is take you a nice lint-free rag or paper towel and wipe all of the excess oil from the surface. Alright, so we've wiped down all our parts, and now we'll let them sit for 24 hours. It'll actually probably be more than that because I've got to work tomorrow night. But when we come back, we'll probably do one more coat with the steel wool, and then we'll do a couple of hand rubbed coats. So we'll get back with you when we get back with this. Y'all have a good one. So it occurs to me just now that I forgot to turn the camera on, but let me bring you up to speed. So we did, over the course of a week or two, we've done a couple of the scrub downs with linseed oil and 4/0 steel wool, like I showed you earlier. And now I've just applied a hand rubbed in coat of linseed oil, and it is wet right now. It's soaking in, and once that gets soaked in for a little bit, we'll wipe it all down, wipe all the excess off, and we'll let it cure for 24 hours or more. And it'll be more because by the time I get back to working on this again, it'll have been more than 24 hours. So we'll come back then, and I'll show you what I do to prep the stock just before putting the rifle back together. So we'll be back with that. Hey y'all. So we've got all our coats of oil rubbed in. This has been sitting up for, I don't know, probably a week and a half, 2 weeks, because I had other projects I had to get done. So it's all good and cured. And now we're going to do the last step that I do to wood before reassembling the rifle, which is to put a coat of wax on it. And a lot of guys use beeswax mixed with linseed oil. Some people use carnauba car wax. There's no real set way of doing it. I like to use paste wax for wood floors. It leaves a nice protective coating. and as long as you haven't polished the wood, it's not going to be super shiny or anything, but it'll have just enough shine to make it look nice. It'll protect the finish, gives you a degree of protection from humidity, all that kind of stuff. So, and it's easy to apply. Basically, you just put it on and wax on, wax off. One thing you want to remember when you're doing this, though, is if you've got areas on the wood, especially with these old military rifles where we're not trying to make a new looking stock, and you've got areas where you've got battle damage, like this big scratch right here, you want to be careful not to get a bunch of wax packed down into that crack, because it just won't look good. So you just kind of want to go around it, and you want to get a good coat rubbed in, applied to the entire piece of wood, and then you set it aside and let it, just like when you wax a car or anything else, you let it dry to a haze and then polish it off. So I'm going to go ahead and get a coat of wax on all these, and then I'll bring you back for the polishing off part. Once your wax coat has hazed over, then you're just going to buff it off. I like to use old t-shirts. Old underwear work good, old socks work good. No need to get fancy. And basically all you're going to do is just buff it off. You don't want to push down real hard. You're just buffing that wax off of there. And you'll see you'll get a little sheen to it, which is nice, you know, makes it look nice. Now our wood is ready for reassembly and another 100 years of use. So what I'm going to do now, this is going to get wrapped up, and we'll see it again once we get to the reassembly video. But for now, this should be the end of the wood preservation video of this Enfield conservation. Appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully you gain something from this, and we'll see you in the next video.